I'm not feeling great. My heart was racing. I'm noticing that, I'm having some anxiety. And when I check in with myself, I realize that I just haven't given myself the time to heal from this year that I needed. So let's prioritize our time, and let's make sure that the things that we say yes to are things that we really feel will move the needle forward and can have impact.
So I want to give you some updates. Taylor Swift is now fighting back hard, okay? Her team is not pulling any punches. Over the last 12 hours, they have dropped a few articles. I told you all of this, and we are recognizing this. It's just a bunch of PR games. And there's an article that just got dropped in TMZ about an hour and a half ago, and they're making it clear that she wants nothing to do with this case. And not only does she want nothing to do with this case, she's calling out Blake Lively.
The internet is buzzing, and not in a good way. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are facing major backlash, something they didn't see coming. They've been called out, criticized, and exposed, and just when you think things can't get worse, Candace Owens enters the scene with some shocking evidence that could change everything. And as if that wasn't enough, it seems like Taylor Swift has distanced herself from the couple. So, what's going on? Hold on tight, because we're about to dive into the controversy that has Hollywood talking. If you've missed it, here's the rundown. It all started with the press tour for It Ends With Us, a movie about domestic abuse that Blake Lively tried to promote as a fun girls' night film. The internet was not impressed, and from there, things only went downhill for her. Fans noticed something strange. Blake barely mentioned her co-star and the film's director, Justin Baldoni, during interviews. Meanwhile, Justin was always giving credit to others involved in the film. But here's the real kicker. At the movie premiere, Justin, who poured so much into the project, wasn't even allowed to walk the red carpet. Instead, he and his family were reportedly made to watch the event from a basement room, packed with concession stand supplies. Yes, you heard that right, the director and star of the film was kept away from the main event, treated like an afterthought while his own movie played on the big screen.
All that is happening, and now let's watch him retrospectively in an interview. Take a listen.
Congratulations, we do. Look at, first of all, the brooch, everything is on point.
I can't claim any of it. I was dressed by wonderful women.
Oh my God, and you look amazing. I'm gonna bring you a little closer because I'm starting to get snagged.
Okay.
You have made it happen. I mean, this was no easy feat. It is a beloved book from the beginning till right now at the end. How does it feel to take that all in? I'm a little speechless. It feels very surreal. I probably should have gathered myself before I stepped on the carpet and took all of this in. I'm just grateful. I'm grateful to Colleen for trusting me, for writing such a beautiful book. I'm grateful to her mother for allowing it to happen, because really this was in honor of her mom. And I'm grateful to Blake for just being a powerhouse of a performer and an amazing collaborator, and just all the people, the crew. I just have my wife. None of this would have happened without my wife, who did that invisible work of being with the children while I was able to make this movie that doesn't get celebrated nearly enough. And I don't know, I'm just kind of speechless, and I'm just excited for it to be released in the world. Yeah, I mean, it takes a village, like you said. I mean, this is a family affair for you as well. Did I see your dad as well here?
My dad and my mom are here, my aunt, my uncle.
All
my
going
uncle
to the basement.
Who never shows up to anything. He's never even been to New York. And my cousin who just lost her husband. And this is a family affair. And my best friends are here. And, I think all of us it just took a village to make this film. And I feel loved and supported and grateful.
It's unbelievably infuriating and frustrating, and also in a weird way you respect it. It's who I want to be. I want to be this person who in moments of extreme cruelty finds gratefulness, finds elements of gratefulness, but I am not capable of being that way in the third trimester of pregnancy, right? So I'm just enraged on his behalf, and I can't believe it. And there is a strength in that. People are right to say there is a strength in restraint. There is a power in being grateful in these moments. And so I credit him, but I'm also we're angry, and there is something about this case, and I think there is an element of this that makes a lot of people feel unsafe, right? I think that's the real reason when speaking about that. There's to envision this happening, being allowed to happen in society, and knowing that this sort of collusion can happen behind the scenes, and yet we would have been given a version of events which would have taken down the victim rather than the aggressor. It doesn't make us trust anybody.
Now that people are calling out Blake for her controversial take on the film and uncovering some questionable incidents from her past, she's changing her story. Instead of taking responsibility, she's now claiming that she was just trying to fix things on set and is placing all the blame on Justin. But is she telling the full story, or is this just a last-minute attempt to save her reputation? Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are being accused of orchestrating a calculated attack on Justin Baldoni's character. The deeper we dig, the more disturbing it becomes. This wasn't just a typical controversy, it feels like a well-planned psychological operation, with the media playing along. They almost pulled it off, and if it weren't for billionaire Steve Switz stepping in to support Baldoni, they might have. And just when we think we've uncovered everything, new evidence keeps coming to light. From relentless bullying to shocking video clips, including never-before-seen footage from Deadpool, where
when I read that article. You know, someone asked me recently why this particular case has seized the world, and I really think that it was just a perfect act of evil that was almost executed in broad daylight, almost like a psychological operation, right? The press was complicit. They almost got it done. This guy would have canceled nothing. And were it not for Steve Sarowitz, the billionaire, who just said, okay, let's go to war. Just think about the other side of that. Like, what would have happened to Justin Baldoni? He would have been canceled. And the more that I watch and the more that I read, the more infuriated I become, because it seems like it's never ending. I can't get to a bottom of their bullying. Every time I think I've gotten every instance of their public bullying, we discover more. Like, we were able to get our hands on the 2 more Deadpool clips, actually, in which he was mocking Justin Baldoni. Here's one of them.
She never said that.
No, but I bet she thought it.
You are so mean. My brain could taste your fingers and they tasted like hate. And where in God's name is the intimacy coordinator?
You're so lost, Mr. Wilson.
Again, and here is one of the cut scenes that they said, okay, this one's not going to make it into the movie, but here it is.
I'd be fighting alongside them, but my calling is to one day host a podcast that monetizes the women's movement.
Calling is to one day host a podcast that monetizes the women's movement. So in the context of all this, I feel myself being strangely angry at Justin for being so nice. Seriously, I was going back and watching his interviews, because now that we have this whole timeline and we know what was going on in the background, it just provides new context to Justin Baldoni on the red carpet premiere for It Ends With Us, okay? So we're going to watch him give an interview to Extra. And I want you to keep in mind everything that we now know was happening leading up to this moment, okay? That he was mocked in the credits of his own movie, that he was mocked mercilessly, endlessly in Deadpool and Wolverine by A-list actors getting involved there. We know that Justin's colleagues and fellow actors on the film were then all invited to the premiere of Deadpool and Wolverine. So they watched him being mocked. And then we know that at the after party, Ryan accuses him, according to the lawsuit, of like being a rapist when he finds some WME exec or whatever it is that he called him. And we know that throughout all of the promotional events for the film, he was intentionally cut out. We could show you so many clips of Blake. Every time they ask a question to Brandon Sklenar, who she decided to run around with, and do all of these interviews with, she essentially just cuts him off and is like, well, talk more about you, Brandon. Talk more about Atlas. Like, talk more about your character. Like, she didn't even want people thinking about Justin Baldoni.
In the growing legal battle between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively, Baldoni has filed a $400 million lawsuit against Lively, her husband Ryan Reynolds, and their publicist Leslie Sloan. The lawsuit includes serious accusations of civil extortion, defamation, and invasion of privacy. The 179-page complaint claims that Lively tried to take control of their film project through threats and demands. Even though she got most of what she wanted, she later accused Baldoni of running a smear campaign against her. The lawsuit also highlights Lively's close ties with Taylor Swift, suggesting that Blake used her media connections, including her friendship with Swift, to spread a false narrative. This, according to the suit,
Charles here from TMZ. You like lawsuits? Justin Baldoni very clearly does, because as promised, he has filed yet another lawsuit in this ongoing battle over It Ends With Us and Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, and now Taylor Swift is also mentioned in this nearly 200-page lawsuit that he filed. And we went through all of that. You don't need to read all of it because we did, and we're going to tell you all the highlights because this is, wow, some real big stuff here. Now, how Taylor Swift gets involved? Well, one of the things, basically Justin's lawsuit that he has filed, Justin and his production company, Wayfarer Studios, have filed this lawsuit against Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and also Blake Lively's publicist, Leslie Sloan, for a whole slew of things. By the way, he wants no less than $400 million. Now, here's how Taylor Swift comes into it. He is not suing Taylor Swift, but I think he understood that mentioning Taylor would get it a lot more attention. So he talks about when they were making the film, before they had started filming, they were talking about the script. And there's a very key scene, if you've seen the movie, where the main characters meet, where Blake Lively and Justin's characters meet on the rooftop. He says that Blake decided to do a rewrite of the scene, and they were having a meeting to discuss that. So Justin goes over to Blake and Ryan Reynolds' New York City penthouse, and they are having this meeting. Ryan is there the whole time. Justin doesn't say that he has any issue with that, but Ryan is there singing the praises of his wife's work. So this is great. And Justin says, I hear you. And a couple hours into the meeting, boom, Taylor Swift pops in. Of course, Taylor, BFF of Blake's. And Taylor says, oh my God, I loved it. This is great. It's amazing. She puts in her 2 cents. And Justin says in the lawsuit, he understood what this meeting was all about. And he actually describes it now as more of an ambush. But the point was, Blake's in control here, and you better do things the way Blake wants it done. And he seems in the lawsuit to say that he was going to go along with that. He understood that he was up against a lot here, so he said, fine, we'll go along with it. And he texts, this is really great. I got to grab this here. Hang on. So after the meeting, he texts Blake to say, love the script, and I actually loved it even before you had Blake and before you had Ryan and Taylor throw their input into this whole thing. He said, I loved it. So Blake responds, and he includes the text message in the lawsuit. She makes a Game of Thrones reference. She says, this is her texting Justin. If you ever get around to watching Game of Thrones, you'll appreciate that I'm Khaleesi. And like her, I happen to have a few dragons, for better or worse, but usually for better, because my dragons also protect those I fight for. So really, we all benefit from these gorgeous monsters of mine. You will too, I can promise you. So, yeah, Taylor Swift is a dragon, and so is Ryan Reynolds. Beyond that, it goes into a lot of the things that we've heard in the other lawsuits about battling for control of the movie, the fact that the studio, Sony Studios, said, fine, we'll do 2 movies. We'll cut 2 versions of the film, Blake's version and Justin's version. Remember, he's the director. The agreement, Justin says in the lawsuit, the agreement was whichever one tested better, that's the one they would go with. He says his version actually tested significantly better than Blake's version, and yet they ended up going with Blake's version because Blake told Sony, if you don't use my version, I'm not going to promote the film. And so, according to Justin, Sony had to give in, and he's clearly not happy about this. He describes it as having to fire himself off the movie because he was the director, but now they weren't using the director's cut of the film. There is a lot of bad blood here. He also goes into Leslie Sloan, the publicist for Blake, saying that once everything started to blow up when the movie came out and there was all this public backlash against Blake, that Leslie Sloan and Blake engaged in this smear campaign against him so that she could seem like the martyr and he could seem like the real life villain. And he goes into all the details of that. There are text messages, many of which we've seen in the lawsuit that Justin has already filed against the New York Times for $250 million. It's a lot of money here, and a lot of people involved. So How this one turns out, whether it actually ends up in court, my guess is no. But yes, another lawsuit filed, and I suspect there are still more to come in this ongoing battle between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. We will have it for you when it comes down.
However, sources close to Taylor Swift have stated that she had no idea she was being used in this way and wants nothing to do with the drama. In fact, insiders say that Taylor isn't pleased with Blake for dragging her into the controversy, and their friendship.
Taylor Swift is now fighting back hard, okay? Her team is not pulling any punches. Over the last 12 hours, they have dropped a few articles. I told you all of this, and we are recognizing this. It's just a bunch of PR games. And there is an article that just got dropped in TMZ about an hour and a half ago, and they're making it clear that she wants nothing to do with this case. And not only does she want nothing to do with this case, she's calling out Blake Lively for lying, okay? So I'm going to read direct from this article. It says, a well-connected source close to Taylor tells TMZ, Taylor came to Blake's apartment at the time that Blake told her to, not knowing anyone else would be there. In other words, Taylor had no idea there was a meeting going on with Justin. The source goes on to say that Justin was about to leave after the 2-hour meeting as Taylor walked in, and she was introduced to him for the first and only time. We are told that all Taylor said to Justin was how excited she was to see the movie because he was her friend's boss. Our source says Taylor believes Blake timed her meeting with Justin so Taylor would arrive before he left, and is baffled by Blake later characterizing her as her quote-unquote dragon. The source adds, it's weird to say that about a friend, and there's more. The source says Taylor is also learning that Blake has been inappropriately leveraging her name for a long time, like telling a young actress that Taylor cast her, which simply did not happen. Oh, wait a second. What do you mean it didn't happen? Okay, a lot to say about this. Obviously, what she's referencing here is what we were told on the red carpet from Isabella Ferreira herself, who kind of turned into Blake Lively's pet. At least that's what Justin is alleging, that basically Blake poisoned her against him and spoiled her. And maybe the point of entry was, I want you to know that my very powerful friend Taylor Swift handpicked you. Okay? And Lily believed it, which is why she said this on the red carpet.
I hear that Taylor may have had some influence in getting.
Yes, she did. Yeah, I know. I don't even know if I'm meant to be saying it, but I'm saying it. Yeah, she was a helpful part of the process of the audition, which I found out later after I got it, and that rocked my world. Yeah. I have no words.
Okay, so it is interesting that she says she was a helpful part of the process, which I found out later on, which means Taylor Swift was clearly not in the room, perhaps, when she was auditioning. So there could be some truth there. And we have seen that obviously in Ryan Reynolds' text messages. Like I said, in his first entry text to Justin Baldoni, they black out a name that very much could be Taylor Swift, which means that as soon as he opened the conversation, Ryan Reynolds with Justin Baldoni, in an introductory conversation, he wanted him to know Taylor Swift is our friend.
So, what does this mean for Blake Lively? Is her friendship with Taylor Swift really on the verge of falling apart? Could Taylor be about to cut ties with her for good? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.